All right, so now we did a Marvel, we did a DC. I'm going to switch over to games for a little bit, just for a little bit. We had Summer Game Fest recently. It actually snuck up on me. I kept thinking of that it was going to be on the 12th, but I forgot that's the Xbox showcase, which I'm, definitely looking forward a little more to that one. But we have Summer Game Fest, which is like kind of our replacement for E3. People are calling it Key 3 because it's from Jeff Keighley, and I think that's kind of funny. But yeah, I'm not going to go through everything. It was like a 2-hour show. There was a lot of stuff announced. I just want to talk very briefly about some of the announcements that were made that kind of cross over with the nerd fandom and maybe some things Mario and I have discussed previously. So again, I'm going to go pretty quick. I'm not going to really go too wild with this. So the first thing I want to call up again is the Callisto Protocol. So if you were listening last week, this is by Glenn Schofield. He's the original creator of Dead Space. He's with a new studio now, and he developed a new survival horror game called the Callisto Protocol. So we did get a trailer of that recently at the Sony State of Play, but at the Summer Game Fest, we actually got a gameplay demo. So we actually got to see actual gameplay of the game. And now seeing it, it's like, boy, does this game look and feel everything like Dead Space. Not a bad thing. But I mean, going down, it's in space. It's very dark and spooky. The enemies are very gross and wet. That's just always like whenever monsters or creatures are like really wet, it makes them so much more horrifying and gross. And now with these, consoles we have now, like the PS5, can make them real moist, and they are fucking gross. It really, it just, I mentioned it last week again too. It's very funny how this is made by the original Dead Space creator. It's coming out December 2nd, and then we have a full from the ground up remake of the original Dead Space coming out a month later in January, not with the original creator. So it's going to be very interesting to see if the Callisto Protocol is able to totally like just ape what they're able to do with the Dead Space remake. I mean, Dead Space has the benefit of like the nostalgia factor and everyone just loving that series and the lore. And we do know they're going to be kind of expanding the lore a little bit and kind of fleshing things out better. It deals with like cults in space and like all this crazy, mystery stuff. We don't really know much about the story of Callisto Protocol yet, but I'm just curious if, Callisto Protocol is going to shit on Dead Space's parade, or if the Callisto Protocol comes out and it's like, good, but that Dead Space remake comes out and is just like, just really takes it to the next level. Or listen, there's plenty of room for both of them to be very good. But yeah, wow. Literally, so back to the Callisto Protocol real quick. So we see some, I guess, like earlier footage of the game. It looks like you're like a prisoner, and it looks like something happens on this space prison because you're in like an orange jumpsuit. But they have the health bar is something that's not on a HUD, but is actually on the body. In Dead Space, you had kind of like this like health reader that went like, vertical along his spine, and it would show you how his health was, green being good, yellow being bad, and like red being you're in danger. This one just has a horizontal one across the neck. So but it's the same way, like you're looking at environmental hints or like things on your character to kind of tell your status. Maybe the way they're moving, if they're hobbling as they get a little more hurt and injured. But then to go even further, they showed a clip, I guess I would assume for later in the game. I don't know if it's like late in the game or just like a few hours after that intro, but at this point, the main character now has some kind of like suit on, and it looks very similar to like the engineered Dead Space suit from the Dead Space series. So at that point, I was really like, wow, this really looks like Dead Space. Down to the way the combat and the shooting looks, it's a little stiff. Which helps add to the survival horror element. The game looks absolutely incredible. It looks stunning. The lighting, the special effects. It looks like also from the gameplay, the character, he looked like he was focused on dismembering the enemies. He was doing a lot of limb shooting. There are some melee attacks you can throw in there. They even brought in the stasis, which is like kind of like a telekinesis kind of thing where you can like freeze enemies or pull them towards you or throw things. And they use that to great effect. There was one shot where they actually grab an alien and then throw him into a spinning like vent fan, and you see him just explode in beautiful gore. The end of the trailer had a cool little thing too. It had a pretty gruesome death, which is very reminiscent of some of the ones you would see in Dead Space, or I think one of the more famous ones is Resident Evil 4 when you would get chainsawed, and that was like very, very graphic. our main character here gets like sucked into some kind of like vent or fan thing, and you kind of see him. It was like kind of horrifying. It was a little like it stressed me out a bit. He was like struggling to get out, and you just see him kind of just get sucked in and just turn into mush. So it looks like environmental factors also are a danger to yourself too, not just to be used as a tool to kill enemies. And it looks like the enemies can use that, because if I'm not mistaken from the trailer, it looked like an enemy like punched you or hit you into there. So it's like you kind of really got to watch out, and that's the power of next gen now, is just like more interactivity. So I am super excited for this game. I do hope it ends up being good and playing well. And I love survival horror. So bring it on. Bring it on. So that's the Callisto Protocol. Get it on your radar. There was also there was just a ton of like space zombies and spooky space stuff in this presentation, which is just kind of funny. Coincidentally, like a million studios are working on things like that. The other thing I wanted to shout out was Marvel's Midnight Suns. We had a reveal trailer for this, I believe, last year, and it was kind of being pitched as like kind of like a RPG. People were thinking it's going to be kind of like it is by the team that makes XCOM, so people were thinking it's going to be like a Marvel XCOM. But here's a couple of things. So you get to create your own character. Very cool. A lot of cool Marvel characters in it. It's an original story. It doesn't copy the Midnight Suns arc from the actual comics. It's kind of like just like a little variation or spin on that. They showed some gameplay this time. Here's the thing that got me. And listen, this might be totally up your alley, and I hope it is. But they showed the gameplay, and I saw a part that said it is a card-based like you're building like a card deck for attacks and buffs and debuffs, and it's like a kind of like a strategy RPG. And as soon as they said card based, I kind of checked out. I just went, no, I can't do cards. I don't know. Like there's something about it. It's not, I to be fair, I have not really given any card or deck based games a chance. So I'm also being a little bit of like, whatever. I suck. I'm not actually, I'm not actually really engaged in those games and haven't given it a fair shot, but it just, when I look at it, it's just like my eyes glaze over and it doesn't do anything for me. And it looks like it's going to be cool. Like there's some, like dark versions of Hulk and Venom. It looks like they get, possessed by the bad side. Whoever that is. I think it's like Lady Hydra or something like that. So we're going to see some of our Marvel heroes maybe get like possessed and be on the wrong side of things. So it's going to be cool. It's going to have like that, I guess, that Civil War feel where it's Marvel heroes fighting heroes, villains fighting villains, and whatnot, like a cool mix of that. And like I said, it's an original story. You get to create your own character and hang out with these. And it looks like they're going to have like a lot of RPG aspects, and there's like a hub area you can walk around in and talk to characters, and there's going to be like a pretty involved story. So maybe it will turn out to be super cool. I need to see a little bit more. I maybe need to look at reviews and see how it is. Like maybe the reviews will come out and they'll say, hey, it's very accessible, and even if you don't like card-based games, it's something you should check out, and then maybe I'll dive in. It looks really cool, and it's something different. It's not just like another third-person action game. We're getting a ton of those. So yeah. There we go. And it's turn-based. So that mileage may vary on that. I know friend of the show, Rob Moreira, my old co-host from the Play It Loudcast, does not like turn-based RPGs. So this might not be up his alley. Now, the last thing I wanted to throw out, was there anything else crazy? Oh, no, it's not the last thing. I have two more things. So the other thing I wanted to shout out really quick was, and I mentioned this before, I think, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. If you haven't heard, this is basically a new old school style beat 'em up with the Ninja Turtles. What's really awesome about this is, obviously it's able to do some more stuff visually. It is still 2D sprite based, but it looks a little nicer because we're on modern consoles. And the original voice cast of the Ninja Turtles cartoon is back to do the voices for the Turtles. I don't know if everybody's back, but at least a couple of them are back to do it, which I think is really awesome. April O'Neil is playable, and in this Summer Games Fest, they just announced that Casey Jones will be a playable character. Also, Splinter is too. So, yeah, really, really cool. They announced that there's going to be a 6-player co-op mode, which has to be absolute insanity. But it's giving me those, the original NES side-scroller beat-em-ups, the arcade beat-em-ups, and like Turtles in Time. It's totally got that. You can throw enemies into the screen, and I am all about it. It looks like they're pouring a ton of a love into this. You could tell the people. It's actually Emu is developing it, and they do like just they're really good at doing these like old school retro style games. So I'm very excited for that. And they announced too that it is I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's coming out in like a few weeks. It's coming out in like by the end of June or like early July. So it'll be in our hands before you know it. And also, I don't think it's out yet. But if you didn't see, they are doing a collection of all of the old Ninja Turtles beat 'em ups, the original ones from NES, the Sega Genesis, Hyperstone Heist, Turtles in Time. I think even like the Game Boy versions or something like that are coming on there. So, and it looks like it has a lot of cool, like just like behind the scenes, like drawings and sketches and art and all that stuff. So that's called, I think it's just called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Collection. Or it's like Cowabunga Collection. I think that's what it is. So yeah, keep your eye out for that too. If you're starving for some beat 'em ups or some couch co-op games, you're about to get like a million of them. And I'm really excited. I'm definitely going to pick this one up. And hopefully, hey, maybe we could play. I could play with some listeners on the show. It looks like they're going to have online, which is pretty dope. Now, the last thing I wanted to shout out. This was actually announced not at the Summer Game Fest. I think it came out in the Devolver Digital portion of like their little like summer display thing. It's coming to PS5. It's called the Plucky Squire. I will maybe try to throw a link in the YouTube description. So basically what this game looks like, it's using the power of the PS5. So really, really pretty looking game, very colorful. It's reminding me right away of like a Zelda-esque game. So, like, you got me, take my money. So it's like a top-down 2D kind of Zelda thing, but it looks like it takes place in a storybook. So it's like you're almost looking at like a desk at a home in like a kid's room, and there's a storybook there, and the levels are on these 2 pages, and you see like the division between the 2 pages, and you're walking across them, and it looks like it has little puzzles and just like some cool combat. But if you actually watch the end of the trailer, there's a section where you actually pop out of the storybook and now you're in 3D and you're walking around the actual kid's room. And it just looks really friggin' cool, really inspired. There's some shots where it looks like you actually go on like a coffee mug. So it's like a curved coffee mug. It reminds me of like Link Between Worlds, if you played that for 3DS, where you could flop between 3D and 2D. And then all of a sudden you were like in a 2D like side-scrolling shooter going around like the arc of the curve of like a coffee mug that was on the table. And then you were interacting with like other objects in the real life room. And I wonder if like, yeah, there's like parts where you switch back into the storybook and then you're back in 3D, or if it's going to like just maybe at the beginning you're in the storybook and then that's the big twist. Is like, oh, no, you're not. Now you're outside of it. I don't know. It was just like a quick like minute and 15-second trailer, but it is on my radar. I would encourage you to check it out. The Plucky Squire. It looks very, very cool. And I don't know if there's a release date for it yet, but it looks awesome, and it looks like it's coming to PS5. I don't see anything about Xbox or not, or like Switch. I probably wouldn't run on Switch, let's face it. So I would imagine it'll be on that. Maybe we'll get it for like PC too. But that's on my radar. That's probably the coolest thing I think I saw. It looks like, I just love really creative stuff like that. It looks like gameplay is king, and that's always the most important thing to me, even more than story most of the time. So that's my quick Summer Game Fest rundown. There was a ton of stuff announced, but those are the things I thought that were most interesting to me and that kind of crossed over with our fandom.